Welcome to the Boreal Forest. Did you know that the Taiga Biome is home to the spruce tree, which is an entire 1 block in width and stands at an impressive height of at least 1 block tall? Greetings, I'm your host Maxitax, and today we will be looking at the Taiga Biome. The Boreal Forest, aka the taiga, is a type of biome located in the northern part of the northern hemisphere, but for the sake of convenience, I will be referencing the Cape Breton National Park, located in the Canadian province of Hockey Stick in Nova Scotia. The average temperature of Cape Breton in the winter months is 28 degrees, and the summer months have an average temperature of 67 degrees. The average precipitation of the Boreal Forest is around 1,500 millimeters, which is roughly as tall as me. I'm very short. There are seasons, they just happen to be winter, and summer, which is slightly less winter. Without further ado, let's just rattle off some animals and their go-go gadget deaden mechanisms to explain how they perform homeostasis. Note that this is the part of the video where you say to yourself, why am I watching this? Because you've been forced to watch this. I could do whatever I want and you would have to listen. That means you, Karen, you know who you are. Firstly, the eastern coyote. These grayish, brownish, yellowish doggos are not very friendly, much like the hard warrior that stayed to await your return. Their ubu crossbreeding with the northern wolves turned them into a form of super coyote, around the size of a border collie. They are a wonderful native of Cape Breton and the surrounding area, and they use their pack tactics to hunt small game and stay warm. As I segue over to our next topic, you might find it interesting that the American mountain ash, contrary to logical assumptions, is not found specifically in mountains or found solely in America. It is, however, found in Cape Breton. You may have seen it as a small tree or shrubbery, but if you have seen it, it was probably in a biome with a colder climate, like the taiga, since this species doesn't adapt well to warm climates. Anyways, on to another, being the North American beaver. Their constantly growing teeth are a constant threat, lest they impale themselves with their own powerful chompers. So to compensate, they gnaw on bark and hardy plants until their teeth get filed to a nice and livable size. Due to this, however, they inadvertently gain the power to warp the environment to their will. They use this power to construct dams, and then make sure that they have a warm and safe shelter for the wintertime. Since the animals I've been mostly focusing on are all mammals, why don't we talk about the fish? More specifically, the Atlantic salmon. A large, slender fish that tends to live about 9 years in the wild. This fish is suited to its environment because it travels up freshwater rivers from the sea to reproduce. A fish that follows this pattern of behavior is referred to as anadromous. Next off is the Hybridoll's eye baneberry, one of the most, if not the most, absolutely metal plant names on the face of the planet, with maybe the exception of the Australian ironwood. Get it? Because it's an ironwood. Like ironwood? I know. I'm here all night. Literally. I need to make this entire video to meet a deadline. It's like 1 a.m. Please help me. They still exist due to their absolute gut-wrecking toxicity. If a human were to eat one of the berries, they would develop stomach cramps, become dizzy, start vomiting, begin obliterating the rectum with shotgun-like diarrhea, contract delirium, and experience spontaneous cardiac arrest. Don't eat them. It's not worth it. Moving along, here's the species of tree known as the balsam fir, not to be confused with a balsamic vinegar, which is in no way related. A coniferous tree, the likes of which are common in the taiga biome. This tree species is suited to the taiga in many ways. First, its needles, which retain moisture and shed snow. The needles are also lined with a waxy coating, which prevents evaporation, and their color helps to attract more sunlight. And finally, since the balsam fir is an evergreen tree, many of its branches on the evergreen trees droop down, allowing for the shedding of snow. This one's a real doozy. The common dandelion. These yellow flowers are essentially an invasive species, growing anywhere and everywhere at any given time. Maybe not Siberia, though. My point is that it's stupidly easy for them to grow, and that's why they're here. It's not very special, but it just goes to show how durable these flowers are. It's like they're made out of Nokias. You don't have to be the toughest to be unrivaled in your ability to adapt to your surroundings. Now, the raccoon may not seem like much at first, since it doesn't excel at adapting to any biome in particular. But what the raccoon does excel at is adapting to any environment, like the taiga. The raccoon can therefore survive in any environment, and this is mainly due to two things. These little trash pandas can rely on one of many different kinds of habitats to support it at a time, and it's omnivorous in nature, which enables it to eat just about anything, depending on the ecology of its surroundings. For example, if a raccoon tries to eat a bear, it would be part of the raccoon's dream, because that's the only way that'll happen. Bears are of a higher trophic level than the raccoon. The Appalachian polypody is a perennial plant prized on the principle of plastering plant matter on precipices. Prithee, Appalachian polypodies are unparalleled in producing apricot pill-podded plumage from their pheromones pumped through the plant's petiole. Alliteration aside, the roots of the Appalachian polypody easily grow in rocky environments, and their coniferous fern nature makes them resistant to the cold, while still having a relatively low maintenance requirement. Lastly, a beast so great that their kind rends the very earth and tramples all in their path, with unfathomable, thunderous might. They wear a crown of bone and a slick pelt, with no remorse for the souls they take. Of course, I'm talking about the darkest, most fearsome monster of all, the eastern moose. Their size and absolute chunk makes them nigh impregnable to attacks from weaker animals in the surrounding environment. It makes them rather imposing as well. But if that fails, their antlers are used as a way to defend themselves. Don't be fooled, however. An angry moose is one that will use more than enough lethal force to demolish a Honda N360 in a single charge. That's more than enough poundage concentration to turn your bowels to sludge and shatter every bone in your torso. They are the kings of the forest. Well, were the kings of the forest. The eastern moose is no longer in Cape Breton Highlands National Park because, due to excessive hunting and habitat destruction, they were likely wiped out in the 1930s. In 1947 and 1948, the Canadian government introduced 18 western moose into Cape Breton National Park to replace the eastern moose. But the moose in Cape Breton today are likely descendants of the 18 moose introduced in the late 1940s. More hunting regulations have been put into place since then concerning the moose hunting lottery and the still dwindling moose population. It honestly helps, but it's not much. Likewise, over half of the boreal forest spanning the width of Canada has been disturbed by human activities, such as logging or mining, making long-term studies of the boreal forest difficult. For this reason and others, protection of the boreal forest within Cape Breton's Highlands National Park is important. That being said, Cape Breton Highlands National Park is a protected ground, and more legislature could easily save more parts of Nova Scotia, or even Canada as a whole. Climate change in the boreal forests will likely create warmer, drier summers, and warm winters with as much as 24% in increased precipitation. The life cycles of many species of native plants and animals are mega janked due to the changes in the timing of the ice freeze-up and breakup, the severity of spring flooding, and the length of drought periods in the summer. Alien species from the south may invade, and diseases such as beach bark disease may flourish in the warmer conditions. Thankfully, the increased abundance of deciduous trees in the boreal forests of North America will slow down global warming and reduce the occurrence of fire. In the long run, they expect the cooling effect to cause more neutral weather and weaken forest fires, given the current chances of them starting up due to lightning strikes. Now, anything but fun fact time. Fact number 1. The park features a great amount of diversity due to its dominant feature, the elevated plateau that is divided by the steep-walled river canyons. North species and habitats on the plateaus coexist with the more temperate habitats of species on the lowlands. Because of this, the park has received the nickname, "Where the mountains meet the sea," making for lovely views. Fact number 2. Sporting 6 campgrounds, 26 hiking trails, several beaches, and a world-class golf course, as well as seasonal amenities, recreational programs, and cultural activities, the park has plenty of recreational activities for you to enjoy. Fact number 3. Approximately 88% of the park is forested. The plateau is dominated by both boreal and taiga vegetation, and is part of the worn-down Appalachian mountain chain that stretches from Georgia to Newfoundland. The boreal land region of this plateau features large swaths of coniferous trees, sprinkled with barrens and wetlands, with plenty of forested nature where no one can hear you scream. In delight as you take a not-at-all dangerous walk through the killer moose-infested grotto. Fact number 4. The human history of northern Cape Breton is 10,000 years in the making. Tribes have lived here, such as the Mi'kmaq, who for 4,000 years have resided there. It was settled by Portuguese, French, Scottish, Irish, and Dutch immigrants from the 1400s onward, and there continues to be a rich cultural history in the region that is active and engaging. Fact number 5. Around 230 species of birds frequent various sections of the park, the most noticeable being bald eagles. An example of commensalism in the Taiga Biome would be a squirrel living in a knothole. The tree doesn't give a hoot whether the squirrel lives in it or not, so it builds its nest in the knothole, and everyone goes about their merry way. The tree does tree things, and the squirrel does squirrel things. On the positive end, the badger and the coyote work together to find food, an example of mutualism. They act as hunting partners. The coyote chases the ground squirrels, and the badger digs up burrows. When the ground squirrel retreats, the badger destroys their hiding spot, and both organisms eat. If the badger can't catch it in time, the coyote hunts it down, and both organisms eat. It's a win-win. A nasty parasite that the coyote can acquire is the infamous French heartworm. The French heartworm lives and feeds inside the arteries of coyotes until they get sick and die. This hurts the coyote, for obvious reasons, and the French heartworm benefits. Now let's talk about the food web. The particular chain I'd like to focus on in the food web is the wolf, the moose, and the aquatic grass. Of course, the moose eats the aquatic grass, and then the wolf eats the moose. But as it goes up the chain, the aquatic grass being the producer, the moose being the primary consumer, and the wolf being the secondary or tertiary consumer, the energy levels go exponentially down, with the wolf getting very little and the aquatic grass being incredibly efficient.